We're on.
Wonderful. Hello.
Hello. Hello, everyone. I'm Kaneisha Grayson. I'm the founder and president of The Art of Applying and your hostess for the Art of Applying video series. And today we have one of my favorite clients of all time, Kenny Inabo. He has a runaway success story, so you're going to learn all about it today. It's the stuff of movies. If they made movies about applying to business school, there's failure, there's discouragement, and there's triumph. It's fantastic. Hi, Kenny.
Hi.
So now that I've given you such a over-the-top introduction, why don't you just tell everyone just a little bit about yourself?
Absolutely. So like Kaneisha said, I'm Kenny Inabo. I was born and raised in the San Francisco Bay Area. Went to college at Purdue in Indiana because I'm the type of person that I like to experience a lot of different new things when I have the opportunity to. So Purdue was a great opportunity for me. Was very involved in marching band, got my degree in industrial engineering, and then ended up having a really exciting opportunity back in the Bay Area, not doing tech, which I know is surprising to hear in engineering going to the Bay Area, not doing technology, but ended up working for a couple manufacturing companies there. After a while, I kind of found that my interests in industrial engineering, which really focuses on efficiency, comes down to my passion for making organizations better. And it was something that when I started considering my future, I knew that getting an MBA would be a great way for me to gain a lot of skills that I knew would be very helpful for me in developing myself professionally and in a lot of ways personally.
So, Kenny, what motivated you to apply to business school?
Well, with a little bit more detail to what I said in my intro, I saw myself professionally getting asked by my managers to do a lot of operations type of work. I was seen as the kind of the change manager and internal consultant where when we had manufacturing problems and managers wanted to do things more efficiently with more speed or with less cost, they'd come to me. But then when it came time to do the financial analysis or when we came to trying to sell it to customers, I was left out of the loop. And that meant that really I saw myself being just used as a tool in this business system, and I want to be a business leader. I figured that business school would be a great way for me to learn a lot of the skills where I could really start applying myself and apply my personality and my leadership characteristics to helping organizations succeed outside of just operations. So really, I mean, the most stereotypical way to say it is I'm a career changer and I'm trying to expand my skill set.
Okay, great. And what was your initial application strategy and how did that work out? I'm also asking about sort of what assumptions did you have about the application process and how it all worked?
I'm glad we have this question because I think this is one of the most important questions that I have to answer when explaining my story. I come from a background where I don't know anybody, I have no friends, family, anybody who's been to a full-time MBA program in the last probably 15, 20 years. So when it comes to the tricks and tips and the strategies that people take for applying, I didn't know any of them. So I had to do a lot of research online, send a lot of emails to current students, and try to piece together what the MBA culture is. And actually, to a degree, the MBA applicant culture is a little bit different than the actual student culture, so it's an added level of complexity. My strategy was find schools that I knew I could get the most from. I know a lot of people turn to rankings to guide where they want to go, and I think that that's a good kind of guideline to give you some schools to think about. But what I did once I started looking at schools that were generally well respected was look at schools that emphasize the things that I care about in my professional life, and that is leadership, working as a team, caring about business, doing things the right way, always trying to find a way to be financially successful while still applying to an ethical code and some kind of a purpose for your industry and for society. And some schools emphasize that more than others, which actually really helped me narrow down my list of schools. Once I had that list, then I started looking at the essay questions that the schools were asking, talking to some of their students and reaching out to them. Most of these schools were very welcoming to applicants like myself, talking to their students and trying to get information about the schools, which was very helpful. So some assumptions that I made, and we'll talk about the ones that are right and the ones that are wrong. one that I wanted to, or an assumption that I made was that people really cared about the personality of their applicants, and that they wanted people who worked well in teams and cared about teamwork over individual success. And I find that that is definitely the truth for most of the business schools that I've been interacting with. I also made the assumption that while the GMAT scores and your GPA were important, it is not the end-all be-all, and if you have a good explanation of how that fits in with your story, that you can have a little bit more leeway than people give schools credit for. And I also believe, and I have found that that has also been true. Some assumptions I made that were wrong was that the schools really wanted just the most intelligent, smart, well-spoken people, and any kind of emotional motivation was not something that they really cared about or were interested in hearing about. And that I found out to be very wrong. In fact, I found that of the people that have been the most successful in this process, they're the people that are the most aware of their emotions and can communicate them very effectively. More specifically, communicate how those emotional motivations relate to their personal and their professional life. And I find that schools really care about that because they don't want somebody who has done a lot of the important things in their life just because they're checking off items on a checklist. I got promoted. I got a raise. I moved into a better company. I got into a top-ranked school. They want the people who did those things because they got promoted because they cared about their team and they work for a company where the bosses really recognize that hard work. And then they applied to a top-level school because they saw it as a good fit and they were able to communicate that good fit. There's a very big difference between those two scenarios because one person is just doing it because that's what they're supposed to do, and the other person is doing it because it's something that they're very passionate about. And passionate is an emotion, and it's something that these schools really do care about because when things get really busy and when things get hard with these classes and even orientations, you really start to see people's underlying motivations. And they want people that when they're really under pressure, they know that the schools can rely on their students to do the right thing all the time, or at least as much as a human can possibly do. So that was a long explanation, but that was a big assumption that I really got wrong the first time. And another assumption that I made that I don't think was really correct was that schools would be welcoming to people who were trying to explore other opportunities, but didn't have all of the background to really make the wise choice. And that was something that I was coming into school doing, because again, I didn't know a lot of people who went to MBA school, so I didn't know when people say I'm going into consulting. I could look up consulting stuff and I could talk with people about consulting, but until you actually meet consultants, you don't understand what that career path is. And so it was hard for me in the interviews to talk about what consulting was and other career paths. I'm using consulting as an example. Mm-hmm. So in my applications, I said, I want to go explore other opportunities where I can use all of my leadership skills. And that kind of nebulous idea, that kind of vague introduction to what I wanted to do, was not well received by the schools that I originally applied to. So I think those are the big assumptions that I made, and those are the things that drove all of my applications. Would you like to hear all the schools that I applied to?
If you are willing to share, I know that the people listening or watching, they want to know as much as they can. So
absolutely,
the schools you applied to, and then whatever about your stats that you would want to share. So I mean, they want to know as much as you want to share. So